The hallway smelled of dust and old perfume, a heavy scent that always clung to the air after the woman cleaned, as if she wanted the house itself to remind the little girl of who held control. The girl pressed her back to the cold wall, knees drawn up, clutching her small left hand against her chest as if it might shatter. The throbbing pain from earlier still pulsed, sharp and relentless. Her eyes were wet, lashes heavy with tears that blurred the dim light. Her voice came out barely more than a breath, a thread of sound so fragile it could vanish at any second. "Please, Mommy, don't hurt me." The words floated into the stale air, and for a moment the house seemed to pause. But no gentleness answered her. No arms came to comfort her. From the kitchen came the sharp clatter of a plate set too hard on the counter. Then the woman appeared, framed by the glow of the single light bulb that swung faintly above the table. Her expression was carved in stone, her mouth a tight line, her eyes sharp and cold. "What is it now?" she snapped, crossing her arms as if to shield herself from the sight of the child. "Always tears. Always excuses. You think the world will pity you? Do you think anyone out there would believe your little act?" The girl shook her head quickly. Shaking was safer than speaking. She wanted to hide her hand, but the pain betrayed her, and she winced. The woman noticed. With sudden movement, she crossed the hallway and seized the girl's wrist, yanking it into the light. The child gasped, lips trembling as the throbbing worsened under the pressure of that grip. "You're nothing but trouble," the woman muttered. "If you can't keep quiet, then you'll learn the hard way." The girl's breath came fast and shallow. She closed her eyes and whispered again, softer, desperate. "Please, don't hurt me." The silence that followed was heavier than shouting. The refrigerator hummed faintly in the background. A pipe groaned somewhere in the walls. Even the shadows seemed to watch, holding their breath. The girl opened her eyes just a little, hoping the scene would dissolve, that she would wake up somewhere else. But the woman was still there, her grip like iron, her voice dripping with disdain. "You always want attention. Well, let me tell you something, attention is expensive. And you've already cost too much." The girl didn't fully understand the words, but she felt the venom in them, the way they cut. She thought of the man she remembered only through faded photographs. A man with warm hands and eyes that laughed. People said he was gone, far away, and that he wouldn't return. But the girl's heart still clung to the memory. Sometimes at night she whispered to the darkness, "Daddy, come back." Outside, rain began to fall, tapping against the window with soft, insistent fingers. The girl let her gaze drift toward the sound, wishing the storm could wash away the ache in her hand, wishing the raindrops could whisper her pain to someone who cared. The woman's grip finally released. "Go to your room," she ordered. "And don't come out until you learn to be quiet." The girl nodded, because nodding was always the safest answer. She padded down the hallway, every step echoing in the small house. In her room, she sat on the edge of the narrow bed, holding her hand close, staring at the window where raindrops slid down like tears she couldn't shed aloud. Time passed slowly, each second stretched thin. The little girl tried to distract herself, counting the raindrops, then the cracks in the ceiling, then the faint hum of the street beyond. But the pain kept returning, a reminder that even silence wasn't safe here. Then, suddenly, there was a sound that didn't belong. Tires whispered against the wet pavement outside. A car slowed in front of the house. The girl's heart skipped. Visitors were rare. No one knocked at this door. A firm, heavy knock rattled the air. The girl's breath caught in her throat. The sound echoed through her chest, reverberating like a promise. She looked toward her door, then toward the window, eyes wide, fear and hope tangled together. In the kitchen, the woman froze. Even from her room, the girl could hear the shift in her breathing, the way silence cracked under the weight of that knock. Another came, stronger this time, demanding to be answered. The girl's small body trembled. Who could it be at this hour? Why did the sound feel so different? Like the storm outside had found its way into their home, like something powerful was about to break through the fragile walls of her life. She clutched her hand tighter, the pain almost forgotten now, drowned by the wild pounding of her heart. For the first time in a very long time, she felt something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. If this opening moved you, Please like and share so more people can discover stories like this and help us keep telling them. The knock did not vanish the way ordinary sounds vanish. It stayed inside the house like a draft, slipping under doors and through keyholes, lingering in corners the way a question lingers when no one wants to answer it. The woman didn't move at first. Then her jaw tightened, and she turned her head just enough for the girl to see the thin, controlled line of her mouth. "Don't move," the woman hissed, voice low and flat. She crossed the living room with quick, soundless steps, paused at the peephole and looked. The chain stayed on. "Who is it?" Through the wood came a man's voice. Measured, polite, not from this street. "Evening, ma'am. Message delivery. Sign on receipt only." "We don't accept solicitations," she said, the words coated in sugar that didn't reach her eyes. "It's not a solicitation, ma'am. It's from Hallberg and Thorne. Legal correspondence." The chain rattled, just a fraction. Not enough to open, just enough to breathe. Wrong address. A beat. The man sounded patient, like someone paid to be patient. "This is the address on file. If you won't sign, I can leave the acknowledgement card and place the envelope in the mailbox." "No," she said quickly. "There's no one by that name here." The chain clicked back into place. The peephole light dimmed. "Good night." Footsteps retreated. The girl, crouched on the threshold of her room, watched the woman stand still until the footsteps faded, as if listening for something the child could not hear. Then the woman flicked on the kitchen tap, the rush of water substituting for conversation. The house resumed its practiced silence. Later, when the rain softened to a hush and the refrigerator found its hum again, the girl crept to the window and dared a glance. The porch was empty, but the mailbox down by the gate wore a pale rectangle like a new bandage. She stared at it until her breath fogged the glass. The woman drew the curtain shut with a single, decisive tug. Morning arrived thin and colorless, as if the sky had washed itself too many times. The girl dressed slowly, careful not to jar her hand, which still ached with a little drumbeat under the skin. In the kitchen, the woman had already arranged the day into lines and squares. A written list pinned with a magnet, a mental list impossible to pin. Toast dry. Water. Tap cold. "Eat," she said, not looking up. "No delays." The girl lifted the toast with her good hand, wincing anyway. The woman's eyes flicked up, taking inventory. "Overacting wastes everyone's time," she said, and the toast tasted like cardboard that had learned to pretend. School had a different kind of quiet. It buzzed with a noise that didn't hurt, the scrape of chairs, the whisper of paper, the laughter that slipped through the hall and pooled in doorways. The girl hid her hand under the desk and learned without raising it. She had made a game of memorizing answers silently, then erasing them from the air before anyone could notice. At recess, a teacher knelt to adjust a window latch and saw the bandage. "You okay there?" the teacher asked, gentle as a feather settling. "I'm fine," the girl said. "Thank you." She was careful to say it in a way that closed the door. A classmate saw the stiffness and whispered, "Did you fall?" The girl nodded. "A door," she said, which was true and untrue and safe. At lunch, the cafeteria smelled like warm bread and orange peel, a kindness disguised as steam. A cafeteria worker slid an extra orange onto her tray with a wink. "We had one more," she said. The girl tucked it into her pocket as if kindness could bruise. The day moved forward because days are machines that refuse to stop. On the walk home, wind teased wrappers along the curb. The girl slowed when she reached their gate, looking once more at the mailbox. The pale rectangle was gone. The metal flap sat just slightly ajar, as if a small argument had taken place there and ended in a draw. Inside, the living room was too neat, the kind of neatness that feels arranged for an inspection. The woman stood by the sink with a cup of tea that hadn't been drunk, only held. On the counter lay a damp square of ash in the sink's basin. Paper doesn't turn to ash like that unless it's been burned quickly and with intent. "Shoes off," the woman said without turning. Then homework. No questions. No wandering. The girl nodded and did as told. In her room, she placed the orange on the bedside table like a tiny sun. She thought of the man at the door. Legal correspondence. The words had sounded like steel. Hallberg and Thorne. The names felt like a hallway that led somewhere expensive. She remembered a photograph, a man with laughing eyes and a suit that smelled like cedar and winter. People didn't say his name much anymore. When they did, it was in past tense, as if the past were a room you could close behind you and lock. But locked rooms have windows. That evening, the apartment tightened again. The woman made a phone call with the speaker off, her voice coated in a sweetness that had barbs underneath. "Yes, of course I received it," she said softly. A pause. "No, he will not be allowed to disrupt her routine. We've agreed on that. He thinks money entitles him to everything. It does not." Another pause. "I'm not losing control of this. Not now." The kettle boiled over and was snatched from the flame before it could whistle. The girl stood in the hallway and stepped back as the woman ended the call and turned. The sweetness on her voice evaporated. Only steam and something sharp remained. "Bed," the woman said. "Early night." In bed, the girl watched night fold itself along the ceiling. Sometimes she tried to count her breaths until sleep arrived. Sometimes she told herself stories about a house with windows that didn't need curtains, about a door that opened when it was knocked, about a voice that said her name as if it mattered. She tried now, but the day would not let go. Hallberg and Thorne. He thinks money entitles him to everything. She whispered one word into the dark, quiet as prayer. "Daddy." She did not sleep long. Footsteps returned, louder this time, not on the porch but in the hallway. The woman moved like a shadow with purpose. A drawer slid open, softly, the particular hush of wood on wood. Metal clicked, the small, deliberate sound of a key turning. Curiosity got to its feet inside the girl. She slid from bed, toes searching for the cold of the floor, and crept to her door. The hall was dim, the light from the living room cut into ribbons by the slats of the blinds. From the doorway she saw the woman at the sideboard, an old piece with a secretive air. One of the drawers was open. In the lamplight, the flash of an embossed crest glinted, gold on heavy cream. The woman folded a document, slid it into a manila envelope, and pressed it flat with her palm. Then she lifted a small metal tin from the drawer, the kind that holds matchbooks, and struck a flame. The girl's breath caught. The flame hovered, then did not touch the paper. The woman thought better of it, snapped the match out, and slipped the envelope into a tote bag instead. She returned the key to the chain around her neck, the chain that never came off, even when she slept. When the woman disappeared into her bedroom, the girl waited. 10 heartbeats, then 20, then as many as she could count before courage turned back. She padded into the living room, stood on the tips of her toes, and tugged softly at the sideboard's other drawer. It gave a reluctant sigh and slid open half an inch. Inside, beneath a stack of old utility bills and a folded scarf that smelled like someone else's perfume, lay a small white card with an embossed crest to match the envelope. She knew crests. The photograph in the old album had one on the corner of an invitation. The night the grown-ups told stories about candles taller than children and music that sounded like glass. She took the card carefully and turned it over. Ethan Vale. Family office. A phone number. A spare, neat hand had written beneath it, "For Lily." She stared at her name until it stopped looking like a word and became a door. No one wrote her name on things. No one wrote it with care, with a flourish on the L as if it were a small ribbon. A sound rose in her chest that she did not release. She closed the drawer as gently as a breath and tucked the card into the pocket of her pajama pants, where the orange had been at lunch, a small, fragile kindness pressed against her leg. The bedroom door at the end of the hallway opened. The girl slid back from the sideboard and moved soundlessly toward her room, heart thudding like a bird against glass. The woman appeared, eyes scanning, that measuring look she wore when numbers didn't add up. "Bathroom," the girl whispered quickly and ducked inside, closing the door until it was almost, but not quite, shut. She sat on the bath mat and waited, counting water droplets that had dried white on the tile. The front doorknob turned. Not a knock. Not polite. A key. The knob twisted and met the deadbolt. A pause. Then a knock after all. 3 times, each one flat and certain, as if it had memorized the shape of the house and the weight of its secrets. The woman strode to the door, voice dipped in sugar again. "Who is it?" A different man this time. Not the courier's patient tone. This one carried steel under velvet. Evening. Mr. Vale requests confirmation the notice was received. The girl pressed both hands to her mouth. The card in her pocket felt hot. We don't know any Mr. Vale, the woman said. Calm, perfect calm. You have the wrong place. A pause. The step of someone who doesn't believe in wrong places. Then I'll let him know you won't open the door, the voice said lightly. He asked me to say this, exactly. Tell her I'm done speaking to lawyers. I'm done waiting. If Lily is hurt, I will come myself. Silence rose like a wave and hung there. The woman's fingers tightened around the edge of the door. Good night, she said, and the deadbolt vibrated as she held it closed with the heel of her hand. Footsteps again. Retreat. A car door opening. The hallway filled with the electric echo of absence. The girl slid the bathroom door open a fraction. The woman stood with her forehead leaning against the wood, eyes closed, lips moving with words that did not make it into the air. When she finally turned, her face had the blankness of a mask set carefully in place. Bed, she said almost gently. Now. The girl obeyed. But sleep did not come. She lay with her hand under the pillow and the card in her palm, the raised letters pressing a secret into her skin. Outside, the rain gathered itself again. Down on the street, an engine idled. Headlights swept across the ceiling and disappeared. A shadow paused at the end of the walkway, looking up at the dark window that hid a small, listening heart. Somewhere between one breath and the next, a new sound threaded the night, the faint buzz of a phone on the kitchen counter. The woman picked it up. A message glowed on the screen, bright as a match in a dark room. Landing tomorrow. I'm coming for my daughter. E. The girl didn't see the words, but she heard the sharp, contained inhale that followed. The sound a person makes when a secret realizes it won't stay secret for long. She closed her eyes and pictured a door opening. And then the lights of a car drifted to a stop right beneath their window. The engine cut. The front gate clicked. Footsteps, unhurried, certain, began to climb the path. The footsteps on the path didn't hurry. They announced themselves, unafraid, then faded into the rain the way a sentence fades into a silence that means not yet. The girl lay awake, one hand under the pillow, the other curled around the small white card whose raised letters pressed comfort into her skin. She waited for another knock that didn't come. When sleep finally slid over her, it was thin and restless, and it left before dawn. Morning peeled itself from the windows in a gray sheet. The woman moved through the kitchen in a series of crisp, controlled actions. Cup, kettle, flame, list. Like a magician who had no interest in wonder, only control. You'll stay in today, she said without looking up. No school. Nurse your drama somewhere I don't have to see it. The girl nodded because nodding was the currency of survival here. Her hand ached with a steady drumbeat, not the sharp fire of last night, but a deep, stubborn throb that made her hold it differently, close to her chest, as if the right shape might convince the pain to be reasonable. On the counter sat the tote bag the woman had packed at midnight. Zipper closed, bulging slightly with papers that had a particular weight. Beneath the table, a suitcase waited without announcing itself. The girl's eyes tracked both without turning her head. The house smelled faintly of extinguisher, the scent that lingers after someone changes their mind about a flame. Eat, the woman said, sliding over toast and water. Not breakfast. Eat. The girl lifted the toast with her good hand and tried to make it into small, obedient pieces. Somewhere under the refrigerator's hum, a phone vibrated. The woman let it buzz until it stopped. When it hummed again, she placed a dish towel over it like a veil thrown over a mirror in a house of grief. She won't be calling again, the woman murmured, and the girl didn't know if the she meant the teacher, the neighbor, or the version of herself who sometimes dared to ask for help. Time at home moved differently than time anywhere else. It stacked itself into little towers, brush teeth, fold blanket, stand still, then knock them over just to rebuild. Around mid-morning, the woman's voice changed, not in tone, but in temperature. She propped the back door with her foot, standing where the cold air could find her, and took a call she didn't intend to share. You told me he'd stay put, she said, the words thin and sharp. A pause. No, I have it under control. Don't use that word with me. Custody is for people who deserve it. Another pause. Longer. The woman's fingers whitened around the phone. He doesn't get to be a hero now, she said softly. He forfeited that right when he left. The girl didn't remember anyone leaving. She remembered absence, which is not the same thing. She remembered being small enough to be folded into a lap that smelled like cedar and winter. She remembered a tie that made a triangle against a warm shirt, the way a hand played with her hair while the other hand signed a piece of paper with ink the color of midnight. People prefer neat stories. They file away the messy ones in drawers that lock. When the woman came back in, she carried a look that didn't fit her face, like she'd tried on doubt and found it the wrong size. She poured tea and watched steam twist upward into nothing. Pack a small bag, she said finally. Essentials only. We're taking a break from here. Where? The girl asked before she could stop the word. Someplace better, the woman said. Someplace where phones don't interrupt. The girl went to her room and stared at the things that felt like anchors. The orange from the cafeteria, now freckled and sweet. A book with a cracked spine and a picture of a moon that seemed to understand. A scarf that still held the clean ghost of someone else's perfume. She chose what she could hide and what she could memorize. She slipped the card deeper into her pocket, then considered and moved it again, inside her sock beneath the curve of her ankle bone, where the press of the letters felt private and real. From the hallway, the woman spoke in a tone so bright it flickered. If anyone asks, she rehearsed, you tell them we're visiting your aunt. If anyone asks about your hand, you say you bumped it on a door. If anyone asks about a man named Ethan, you blink as if the name sounds like a street you've never walked. The girl found her shoes by feeling for familiar scuffs. Is he? She didn't say my father. The words were too large to risk. Is he angry? Angry. The woman's laugh had no joy in it. He is rich. Rich people don't get angry. They decide. They spend. They hire other people to be angry for them. She stepped closer and crouched until their faces were a breath apart. And they like to collect things that look good in photographs. The girl didn't argue because arguing was a rainstorm here. You got wet either way. But somewhere behind her ribs a small voice asked, why does his name on a card feel like a hand offered, not a cage? Why do those footsteps sound like someone learning my house so he can find me in the dark? Midday came and went. The suitcase remained by the table, the tote by the sink, the house pretending to be calm. At some unmeasured moment between then and afternoon, the woman told the girl to rest. You'll need it, she said, smoothing a wrinkle from the bedspread with a palm that knew how to press out the rebellion of fabric and thought alike. Rest here meant be quiet while I decide. The girl lay down, shoes off, socks on, the card warm against her ankle. She counted to 100 and then to 100 again. When the numbers began to sound like the same number, she slid from the bed and moved to the bathroom, where the fans low were made a small privacy out of air. On the back of the door, the woman had hung a robe with pockets too shallow for secrets. The girl didn't need pockets. She needed a phone. There was one in the hall, a landline mounted just above her reach. During storms, the woman left it unplugged to teach lightning manners. Today it was plugged in. She stood on the bath mat and rehearsed nothing. The fan grew a fraction louder as Hope leaned closer. She opened the bathroom door slowly, like someone easing past a sleeping dog. The hall was empty. In the living room, the woman's shadow moved across the floor, back and forth, the measured pacing of someone counting invisible steps. The girl reached up, fingers brushing plastic, then finding cord, then finding the cool exact shape of call. She lifted the receiver, listening to the static become a dial tone that sounded like a horizon. She didn't know the number by heart. She knew it by skin. She bent, slid the card from her sock, and set it on the edge of the phone, the raised crest catching light like a small brave sun. Her finger moved, one digit, then the next, careful, reverent, as if pressing a code that might open a door in the world. It rang once. Twice. On the third ring a voice answered. Clear, surprised, like someone who had been awake a long time and just found the reason. Ethan Vale. Her throat closed and opened. Sir. I'm sorry, she whispered. I think this is for Lily. A silence that wasn't empty. Then, softer, as if he were stepping into the very room to keep from frightening her. Lily, are you safe? The question melted something frozen. Tears blurred the numbers into soft moons. She nodded, forgetting he couldn't see. My hand hurts, she said, because that was the truth she could reach. But I'm okay. I think I'm okay. Where are you? He kept his voice low, but it carried a through line of steel, the kind of strength that knows exactly how strong it is. Do not say it if someone can hear. Is she there with you? The girl glanced toward the living room. The shadow on the floor paused. The pacing stopped. I can't say, she breathed. She said we're leaving. Soon. Listen to me, the voice said, and the words were not orders. They were a bridge. I'm close. I won't let anyone take you somewhere I can't find. If you can't talk, hang up. I'll call back. If she takes the phone, don't be afraid. I see you, baby. I see you. No one had called her baby in a way that made her feel larger instead of smaller. She held the receiver closer, as if it were warm. In the living room, the floor sighed with weight. The girl's name entered the air like a knife wrapped in velvet. Lily. She covered the mouthpiece with her palm. I have to, she began, but the sentence never finished. The woman was there, quiet as a closing book. Her hand reached, swift and precise, plucking the card from the edge of the phone with 2 fingers, as if removing a thorn from a rose she intended to keep. Her eyes flicked to the embossing, and something hard and satisfied clicked into place behind them. Who is this? The woman asked, lifting the receiver from Lily's hand with a smile that had no joy. She didn't wait for the answer. This number is not for you. On the other end, the man's voice did not get louder. It went deeper. Put my daughter back on the phone. The smile thinned. She's not your anything, the woman said softly, and set the receiver back in its cradle with the finality of a judge's gavel. The room changed shape. The girl's breath sounded too big for her body. The woman slid the card into her pocket and patted it once, as if reassuring an ally. Get your shoes, she said. We're leaving now. Now. The word escaped raw. Now, the woman repeated, already lifting the tote, already reaching for the suitcase handle. She moved with the speed of someone who has rehearsed escape 1,000 times in a mirror. The deadbolt snapped. The chain whispered. The door opened to rain. They stepped onto the porch. The air smelled like metal and wet pavement and the kind of electricity that gathers just before a storm chooses its target. At the gate, a car idled, lights off, engine purring like a cat that trusts its claws. The woman tightened her grip on the girl's shoulder and guided her down the steps. Across the street, another engine started. Headlights flared to life, not blinding, but bright enough to turn raindrops into beads of glass. The car at the curb rolled forward 2 feet and stopped, a small adjustment with a large meaning. The woman halted mid-step. A door opened somewhere. Clean, deliberate. A tall figure stepped out, an umbrella snapping wide with a practiced flick. He paused at the sidewalk as if listening to the rain for directions, then turned his face toward the porch where a small, shivering world stood between leaving and being found. Lily, the voice called, not loud, not pleading, a name spoken like a promise finally arriving. The woman's fingers dug into the girl's shoulder. The gate latch clicked, and the night held its breath. For a heartbeat, the world forgot how to move. Rain stitched silver threads between the porch and the street. The gate latch hung crooked, as if deciding whose story to believe. The woman's hand clamped Lily's shoulder. Across the sidewalk, the tall man closed his umbrella half a fold, letting the rain pepper his coat as if he wanted no barrier at all between himself and her name. Lily, he said again, neither loud nor pleading but steady, a note struck true. Are you hurt? The question traveled across the yard and set down inside her ribs like something that belonged. The grip on her shoulder tightened, and the pain in her small hand flashed awake. She didn't answer. Not with words. Her body swayed a little toward the voice and then back, a tide that hadn't chosen a moon. We're going, the woman whispered, angling Lily toward the idling car. The keys chimed in her fist. Now. The man stepped to the gate without touching it. Up close, he didn't look like the photographs. He looked like the feeling the photographs tried to hold, winter and cedar and warmth that didn't apologize for itself. Rain glazed his dark hair. His eyes, quick and exact, took in the angle of Lily's arm, the way she guarded her hand, the line on her wrist where pressure had been. "I won't raise my voice," he said to the woman, tone even, professional. "And I won't argue in the rain. But you won't put her in that car." He lifted a waterproof folio slightly, not in triumph, but as one shows a map. "There's an emergency order. Signed at 4:20 this afternoon." The woman laughed softly, a delicate blade. "Paper," she said. "Paper is just a way rich men pretend to be brave." His gaze didn't move. Paper is how courts hear children who aren't allowed to speak. He angled his body by a fraction, and for the first time Lily understood. All his careful calm didn't mean softness. It meant choice. "Lily," he said, eyes on hers, not the woman's. "Can you breathe with me? In and out." Something inside her loosened at the instruction. She drew one breath, then another, as if the night itself had remembered how that was done. The woman felt it, that shift, and answered with pressure. Hard fingers above the elbow, the kind that insist you remember who decides. "You are trespassing," the woman said coolly. "You're frightening her." "You're the one gripping a child in the rain," he said, still level. The umbrella slid to his side, ignored. "Let go of her arm. We can talk on the porch. We can call the caseworker on speaker. But you're not leaving." The car across the street, the one with its engine idling like a patient animal, rolled forward another foot, enough to be seen, not enough to block. In the driver's seat, a shape lifted a phone and spoke into it without taking eyes off the gate. Neighbors' windows woke like cautious eyes behind curtains. A dog farther down the block offered a single bark and thought better of it. The woman leaned toward the hinge of the gate and pushed it with her hip. Wood rasped against metal. "You don't get to walk up to our house with money and a voice you hired at law school and pretend you know any of us," she said, smiling at no one. "You don't get to arrive with your weatherproof folder and your careful nouns and take what isn't yours." His answering breath was almost a laugh, not because anything was funny, but because something unbelievable had been said. "You're right," he said. "I don't get to pretend. I get to be here." His eyes flicked to Lily's. "Fire." He stopped himself, closed his mouth over a word that had lived too long in the past to be risked in the open. When he spoke again, it was simpler. "Lily," he said, "I'm here." The woman's tote bag slid on her shoulder, the corner of a heavy cream envelope peeking out as if it had been trying to climb free. Rain beaded on the embossed crest before the woman shoved the paper deeper and cinched the strap high, as if secrets stayed dry when you wore them close. "Step," she ordered, and tugged Lily forward. The tug was more command than momentum. Lily's shoes squeaked on the wet wood of the porch. The gate opened another inch. The man's hand rose, slow, palms visible, the opposite of a threat. His eyes never left Lily's. "If you're scared," he said, "you can say yes by blinking twice." Something as small as 2 blinks can be a thunderclap when you've been taught silence is survival. Lily blinked. Once, twice. So close together they could have been one long flinch. The woman didn't see. The man did. The muscle at his jaw tightened, and for a fraction of a second the calm cracked, enough for Lily to glimpse the storm beneath it, the kind weather chooses when it's done being argued with. "Driver," he said without looking away, voice low. "Call her case manager. Patch in the judge if you have to." From the car, a voice answered, tinny in the rain. "Already dialing." The woman's smile didn't leave, but it lost all color. She shifted tactics the way a chess player touches 2 pieces at once. "Lily," she said sweetly, "tell this gentleman you don't want to see him. Tell him we have a routine. Tell him you are happy at home." Lily's throat closed, opened. Words tangled and refused to pick a side. In their place, something else rose, the steady count the man had offered her. In, out, in, out. She let herself breathe, and with each breath, the warmth in his eyes didn't go away. It waited. It didn't get bored. It didn't grow impatient and turn into a lecture. It stayed. "I don't need to speak to you," the woman said to him. And neither does she. Finish your performance somewhere they clap for it. You'll have an audience, he said. It just won't be the one you want. Headlights washed the street in a pale, official blue-white. A second car slid to the curb behind his, doors staying closed, engine running. The umbrella on his arm clicked shut. He stepped through the gate in one clean motion and let it swing back without touching the woman or the child. He kept the distance bailiffs keep in courtrooms, as if he'd measured it 1,000 times. You're not taking a step closer, the woman warned, voice thin with a metal thread. I will scream. I hope you do, he said. It will wake every witness you tried to hide from. The tote strap slipped again. The woman snatched it and, with the same motion, yanked Lily another half-step toward the waiting car. Lily's injured hand smacked the fence post. Pain went bright and white. She couldn't stop the sound that escaped her, small and involuntary. The man flinched as if the ache had been his too. Enough, he said softly, and it wasn't a request. A phone rang, the sound clear, insistent, inside the idling car across the street. The driver answered and pivoted the screen so that the man could see. In its glow, a name shone through rain and distance like a lighthouse. Case Manager, D. Ortiz. His mouth angled, one notch closer to yes. The command from the curb held the night steady. Firm, human, undeniable. The woman's fingers faltered, a seam opening where certainty had been stitched too tight. Lily moved through it. Her sleeve tore with a whisper. She stepped into rain and found the space where a hand waited. Not grabbing, not claiming, simply there. This time their fingers met. The contact wasn't dramatic. It was simple, warm, steady, skin to skin, a line drawn between 2 points the way a map finally agrees with the land. The man's other hand hovered, open, showing the officers he wasn't taking, he was receiving. I've got you, he said, quiet enough for only her to hear. I've got you now. The woman lunged. An officer stepped between, palm out, voice low. Ma'am, stop. Another officer angled to the side, a blue-white strobe washing the fence. Hands visible, he added, not harsh, just practiced. The idling car across the street silenced, its driver pocketing the phone and lifting a badge no one argued with. The man, Ethan, did not look away from Lily. Breathe with me, he said again, and they did, in rain, in public, as if breathing could be the plainest kind of courage. The case manager's voice finally joined the scene, tinny from a speaker but solid as a dock. Ms. Ortiz on the line, the driver called, setting the phone on the hood so everyone could hear. Emergency order verified. Temporary placement with biological father until hearing, 48 hours. The woman's laugh tried to survive but arrived late, brittle. Temporary, she echoed. Paper tricks. Men with money and winter coats. The case manager did not raise her voice. Ma'am, Ortiz said, polite as a closed door. I've reviewed the photos and your statements. I've also reviewed your refusal to allow a medical check, your obstruction of contact, and 2 prior welfare calls from the school. This is no trick. The woman's face changed in stages. Surprise, calculation, a long reach for a tool she couldn't find. She adjusted the tote high on her shoulder. The embossed corner of a document flashed and disappeared. One officer tilted his head. Mind if we take a look in the bag? He asked. We'll be careful. No, she snapped too quickly. You may not. Ethan didn't step toward her. He didn't need to. There's a letter in there addressed to Lily, he said, tone still even. A card, too. If it's what I think it is, it explains why the courier came last night, why the mailbox was lighter this morning, why a match was struck and then reconsidered. He turned to the officer, then to the phone. We can wait for a warrant if needed. The officer glanced at Ortiz's name glowing on the screen. Ms. Ortiz. You can inventory items in plain view, she said, and you can note any correspondence bearing the child's name for the court. Do not open sealed legal documents tonight. Log and preserve. The woman clutched the tote to her ribs. She's not your prop, she said to Ethan, words tight, eyes burning. You can't make her love you with paper and lights. Ethan's answer was softer than his coat, softer than the rain's hush. Love isn't the first thing I'm asking from her, he said. Safety is. He crouched until his eyes were level with Lily's. Hospital first. Just to make sure, okay? He didn't say your hand. He looked at it and that was enough. Lily nodded. The nod wasn't the old survival nod, the one that meant I'm agreeing so the weather will pass faster. It was new, small, but hers. The officers shifted their attention to logistics like people who have carried evenings heavier than this. One took statements. Another documented the welt on Lily's wrist with careful distance and a lens that never looked at her face without asking. The driver retrieved a blanket from the back seat. Not a rescue cloak, just a fleece with a coffee stain that proved it had kept other people warm on other nights. Ethan draped it over Lily's shoulders and let her tuck her injured hand into its fold. "Do you remember the photo?" he asked, an odd question maybe, but shaped like something only they could know. "The old album. The one with the invitation in the corner. You tried to peel the crest off because you thought it was a sticker." Lily blinked, rain mixing with tears she didn't hide. "I wanted to keep the shiny part," she whispered. "You get to keep more than that," he said. "You get to keep yourself." The woman stood at the edge of the porch, shivering though the night wasn't cold enough for it. Fury is a poor coat in rain. "He will leave again," she told Lily, the statement aimed like a dart. "Men like him always do." This time Ethan looked at the woman, not like an opponent, but like a fact. "You don't get to tell her the future," he said. "You've narrated enough." Ortiz's voice guided the next steps the way beacons guide low planes. "Officer Reyes, you'll escort to St. Catherine's ER. I've alerted intake. Mr. Vale, keep receipts for all care. Ms. Klein," the woman's name dropped gently but exactly. "You'll receive a call in the morning with hearing time. Bring counsel. Bring all documents you have regarding Lily." The woman's jaw set. "You want documents?" she snapped and yanked the tote open like a dare. A manila envelope slid out, heavy cream gone darker where rain touched it. The embossed crest glinted and then muttered itself into the streetlight. She held it up between two fingers. "Here's a document. Here's your paper. Congratulations." She flung it at Ethan's feet. He didn't flinch. He bent, picked it up and passed it to the officer without even looking. "Log it," he said. "Please." Something about please undid more than a slam could have. The woman's shoulders lowered a fraction. She turned her face away so no one would witness whatever expression tried to arrive. It didn't matter. Witness had already come, with badges, with names, with a child whose voice had begun to rejoin her body. They moved together, officers clearing, Ethan sheltering, Lily holding the blanket shut at the throat like a cape she wasn't ready to name. The neighbor's dog barked once and wagged, as if voting for calm. Headlights swept, doors opened. The world reorganized itself into next steps. In the hospital, light was too clean to argue with. A nurse with warm hands and shoes that didn't squeak examined Lily's wrist and spoke to her, not over her. "This will sting," she warned, and then made sure it didn't sting too much. X-rays were as gentle as machinery can be. A doctor reviewed the film, drew a small star where bone meets bravery, and called it a sprain with no fracture. "You did the right thing coming in," he said, and wrote letters on a form that proved truth to people who demand it in ink. Ethan didn't pace. He sat in the hard chair beside the bed like it was a throne in the only country that mattered. He answered questions when asked and stayed quiet when Lily answered them herself. When a social worker stepped in with a clipboard and a practiced smile, he did not stand in front of it. He shifted aside so Lily could see the door and the person in it. Choice is a kind of oxygen, and he made sure she had some. At discharge, the nurse offered a sling Lily could decorate if she felt like it. "We've got stickers," she said. "Stars, moons, puppies." Lily chose one small moon and placed it near the elbow, where it could watch but not get in the way. Outside, the rain had retired, leaving the streets rinsed and reflective. City light pooled in every dip in the pavement. Ethan opened the car door and then paused, not to prolong anything but to be clear. "We can go to a hotel tonight," he said. "Tomorrow, we'll go somewhere that doesn't smell like dust and old perfume. You can choose your pillow. You can tell me if you like the window open or closed. You can tell me when to be quiet. I'll be bad at it sometimes. You can tell me again. Lily studied his face the way you study a horizon to see if it's moving. Will you leave? She asked, and the night went still to hear an answer it had waited too long to know. I left before, he said, honest landing like a steady hand. I thought protecting you meant staying out until a court said come. I was wrong. I'm here now. I'll be here tomorrow. I'll be here if you need space and here if you call at 3 a.m. because the dark got too big. You don't have to believe me yet. I'll prove it. She climbed into the car. He didn't tuck the blanket around her like a prop. He held out the ends and let her decide. She pulled it up to her shoulder. He closed the door softly, as if the car were a room someone was sleeping in. They drove through a city washed clean at the edges, past windows where other families did not know that tonight a house had remembered how to open. At a red light, Ethan glanced at Lily, then at the moon sticker on the sling. You kept the shiny part, he said. She nodded, eyes on the window where her reflection looked less scared than before. I'm keeping more than that, she whispered. When the elevator doors in the hotel slid open, the hallway smelled like lemon and quiet carpets. The room had 2 beds and a view that made the city look like a patient machine. Lily stood in the doorway and took it in. The chairs, the little desk, the switch that made a lamp bloom and then fade. You can take the bed by the window, Ethan said. Or the one by the wall. Or both, he added, as if abundance were a normal thing. One for sleeping and one for books. She chose the window. She set the hospital folder on the nightstand because proof can rest, too. She slid the card from her sock, the letters pressed soft from carrying. She didn't hide it again. She placed it beside the lamp, crest facing up, as if to mark new territory. Good night, Lily, Ethan said from the other bed, fully dressed, shoes by the door, a man trying to be ready for every kind of need a night can carry. If you wake up and it's too quiet, I'll talk. If you wake up and it's too loud, I'll listen. Silence settled, not the dangerous kind, but the kind that lets people sleep. She lay on her side and watched the city breathe. For the first time, the dark didn't feel like a room with its door locked from the outside. It felt like a long hallway with a light at the end and someone walking toward her, not away. When she finally closed her eyes, the last thing she heard wasn't rain or a knock. It was a promise shaped like a man's breathing on the other bed. Steady, ordinary, present. Morning would come. Paper would become plan. Courtrooms would have chairs for small legs and water cups that tasted like plastic. None of that would be simple. But tonight, the door had opened. And someone had walked through. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Cryspire and share it with someone who needs hope today. Your support helps us keep telling the stories that deserve to be heard. The woman saw it all. The screen, the steady man, the half-open gate, the set of a child's shoulders that had learned to lift for other people's weather, and understood that paper can be a door you cannot close once it opens. She made her choice. Now, she hissed and lunged. The world turned into small, fast pictures. Keys flashed. The tote swung. Lily's foot slipped onward slick with rain. A car door clicked open. Their car, a dark mouth. The man moved, umbrella dropping, folio tucked to his side, a clean line cutting the distance. The neighbor's window brightened. Somewhere, as if cue had been given, the second car's doors popped in tandem and boots took the curb in a rhythm that did not belong to arguments. Lily felt the woman's grip slide from muscle to fabric. She felt the soft give of her own sleeve, the desperate catch of nails on cotton. She twisted, not away, not toward, but into the only space that promised air. The world narrowed to a triangle. The open car door behind her, the man in front, the rain between. Lily! The woman snapped, voice at last raised. The sugar boiled out of it. Do not. The command never finished. A new sound cut the night in two, a voice amplified just enough to carry, firm without echo. Ma'am, it said from the curb. Step away from the child. The woman's head jerked toward the street. Lily saw the smallest seam open in the grip that had always felt welded. She didn't think. She moved. The sleeve tore with a soft, sick rip. Something warm rushed past her, the rain-wet smell of cedar and winter, and a hand reached, not grabbing, not claiming, but offering. Lily reached back. Their fingers did not meet. Not yet.